Welcome to Manhood Race Culture Interactive. Tonight's message is going to be addressing the question of what actually is winning in the fight for racial equality. As always, we're just starting this channel up, and it would be a great support and encouragement if you would like, subscribe, share, and push the notification button for this channel if you are liking the content that we're putting together. Now, back to the question that we're going to deal with tonight: what is winning in the fight for racial equality? The reason this comes up for me, and it actually comes up fairly often, is because so many of my students are caught between this very um, interesting dilemma. And the dilemma is usually presented to them by myself during my lecture dealing with civil rights and the idea of the fight for racial equality. The question I pose to them is this one: are you equal as Black students, as Black people, Black folks? Are you equal with whites? I've yet to have a student raise their hand and say that they believe that they are equal, meaning that there is no racial inequality, any racial injustice. And these are students who are novices when we begin to talk about the idea of race, what it means, what its historical roots are. But there's something in their experience and in the experience of their parents, their grandparents, their ancestors, as far back to that moment when the first 1619, when the first Africans came here under the control of whites. I won't even go into the discussion of if they came before Columbus, as Ivan Van Sertima asserts in his work. But they innately say, quite simply, no, we're not equal. And I strategically push back, trying to make this a learning moment for them. And I asked them, what rights do whites have that you do not have? And anyone who's studied this nation's law, they understand quite simply that justice is supposed to theoretically be blind. But in actuality, we know that theory and practice are two very different things. And it's in talking about this idea of theory and practice being two different things that my students become stumped, because they cannot pick out a single law, because there is no single law written down on the law books of this nation that whites have over Blacks. Yet they innately, internally, inherently even understand quite simply that they are not equal. I use this uncertainty to introduce them to some of the theory behind the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Dr. King, who many people falsely believe is the father of the modern civil rights movement, I would actually lay that moniker at the feet of Asa Philip Randolph, or even Charles Hamilton Houston, the brilliant attorney who leads the fight against Jim Crow in this nation's courts. However, in saying that, Dr. King, Dr. King goes ahead and he says that in his book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? He says the civil rights movement actually had two stages. The initial stage was to secure equality on the law books of America. And by and large, that is achieved with Lyndon Baines Johnson, a Texan, a Southerner, signing of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And of course, we will have another Civil Rights Act in 68. However, King's point stands that it's two stages. The first stage is equality on the law books of America. The second stage that we have to deal with is actually going to be the exercise of that equality. And once again, to return back to my students, that's where they get stuck. They understand that they're not treated equal any stage, at any moment of their engagement with the law, and even with extra legal areas like economics, politics, and what have you. Um, Dr. King is very clear on this as well. And what King says, quite simply, about the second stage, once again, the exercise, the application of the theoretical equality that was secured in 1965. King says, please do not be unduly swayed by white parents when you see them fall out in the middle of a public park because a Negro child is swinging on a swing next to their precious white child. Integration of a park is cheap. It costs us nothing. It will be the second stage, the integration of colleges, universities, jobs, political arena, asking whites to voluntarily share power. That's going to be much more difficult. And let's be fair to white America in this regard. This is capitalism. We live in a capitalist nation, everybody. I don't care what race, ethnicity you are. Even if you were born into wealth, you're fighting to survive. And I often challenge my students and I ask them, do you know any good white folk? And invariably, one or two of them will raise their hands. And I ask them, would your good white folk give up their job so that your father or mother could have their job to integrate a company? And they always laugh and say no, because they need that job to take care of their family. And that's King's point, that the idea of just writing laws is one thing, but to actually apply them, that's going to be something totally different. Now, having said that, when we're talking about the idea of winning in racial equality, what we're really talking about is how do we address the inequitable power dynamics that have existed historically between Black and white, and in many ways are reaching historic levels of discord, where you have some whites who are going to have so many resources and some Black folk who have found a way to get some resources. And you're going to have also Black and white, red, brown, yellow Americans who are scraping at the bottom of the barrel. So we can't just solely focus our analysis upon the idea of race when class is such a major issue within this nation. Once again, we live within a capitalist nation. So the question becomes, how do Black folk get political economic power? And once you get it, how do you maintain it? How do you keep from losing hard-fought gains? And when you look at the American landscape, regardless of what your political affiliation is, be you Republican, Democrat, Tea Party, Black nationalist, white supremacist, whatever it is, we're all talking about creating these caches of power to be able to make others do what we want them to do, but it's not in their best interest to do it. That's what power basically is. So once again, the idea of how do we do it? So often when we talk within the Black movement, within the movement of the left, we're not discussing these things in a way that are, number one, palatable, understandable, comprehensible by those that we should be speaking to. Far too often we get into an echo chamber and we just speak amongst ourselves and have, an amen and hallelujah corner. So hopefully this space is not that. It's intended to speak to the masses of people, intended to address those who do and do not know what dialectical materialism is, who do and don't know who Karl Marx is, okay, Thomas Paine, all of these important historical figures. So how do we overcome? And I'm specifically talking about Black America, Black men in particular. Um, Number one is education. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you're behind educationally, as Brother Malcolm put it, the future belongs to those who prepare for it today through education. Um, we'll never win. And the beautiful thing about education is quite simply anyone is able to obtain it. And I get it that there are some people who will never sit within a collegiate classroom or what have you. But the truth of the matter is that the moment that we're living in right now, even with this medium that we're dealing with right now, um, it's accessible. If you really want it, it's accessible. And for me, I'm a person who was born in a small town in Ohio. I'm first generation college. If you ever seen a Shawshank Redemption, the prison there, that's my hometown. I'm from Mansfield, Ohio. But through mentorship, guidance, prayers, love, and some of being tough love by my K through 12 teachers, all the way through my undergrad and graduate career, um, I was able to make it to this point. And I, like so many others that I know, were willing to break bread with whoever's interested in doing this kind of work, regardless of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual identity, and what have you. We're willing to break bread with you and build. So the first thing is going to be education. The next one is going to be one that is it's almost laughable that we have to even deal with this, but it is political participation. There's no way that we're going to be able to reverse this thing as Black America being 13% of the population without participating in the political arena. And because our number is 13%, we got to be very strategic. And I'm not calling for the manufacturing of consent. I don't care if you are as far left as Brother Cornel West is, or as far right as Brother Thomas Sowell is. What Black America needs to be concerned with is quite simply this question: what is the end goal? If it is the liberation and salvation of the Black nation, we can work together. So we must get involved in the political arena. And finally, the third way that we can win is strategic economic moves from a collective mindset, not an individualistic mindset. Black America needs more entrepreneurs who believe in what could best be termed socially responsible individualism. If you're a Black business owner and Black America has given you a monopoly upon their dollar, you owe them something for that. And that may very well be you sponsoring community programs. That may very well be you hiring some of the hardcore unemployables that are within our community, mentoring others to become business owners like yourself. You owe something. So once again, when we're talking about what is winning in the fight for racial equality, we have to remember that we are equal in the law books of America, but we have to continue to agitate for the idea of the exercise of those equalities. And the exercise of those equalities, hopefully one day, will lead us to be able to relax. We just had the Ahmaud Arbery verdict come down. I don't know anyone in Black America who is calm or without concern about it, because we're all saying behind closed doors, yeah, they were convicted, but now what's the sentence? Because we have been, let them run astray, as Malcolm would put it, hoodwinked, bamboozled far too often. So it is on us to go ahead and understand that we have to be fighting for what? The exercise of that equality. And the path to that is threefold. One is a relevant education, as Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale put it. Number two is going to be participation in the political arena. You will never win. You have no chance of winning if you refuse to participate in the political arena by registering, studying the candidates, and then going out and casting your vote. You'll never win if you don't do that. Because in essence, what you're saying is you're conceding to those who want to maintain their power quotient. You're conceding to them the right to make the rules. You can't win that way. And then finally, strategic economic moves. There is no getting around that. We have to understand that Black America needs to develop a means of employing itself. We have to develop young minds, young business minds, who will be the next entrepreneurial class. Because without that, you're going to always be a beggar. You're going to always be approaching white America or some other race with your hand out. And in due time, as we've seen historically, these groups will tire of employing you. And will ask what is a very logical question. Can't you create a business and run it for yourself and your people? And they have every right to do that. So I'm going to end with this message right here. Once again, this was What is Winning in the Fight for Racial Equality. I am Dr. James Thomas Jones III, African American Studies professor. I am a Buckeye, a proud Buckeye, even though we lost to that team up north this year. Still proud to be a Buckeye. My degrees are, I have a BA in African American African Studies, an MA in African American African Studies, an MA in Educational Policy and Leadership, an MA in History, and my PhD is in History as well. Thank you for viewing this. And once again, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and hit the notification button so that we can grow this channel, we can grow this message, and we can continue to build. One love to you all. Peace.